Hello everyone, welcome back to the studio in Florence, Italy. Today we are doing some Q&A. I've solicited some questions from Instagram and I'm going to answer as many as I can here today. We'll cover a lot of ground, everything from how important drawing is to how to keep things symmetrical. The video playing in the background will be the sculpting of Kronos. This is a total of 5 days of work edited down into an hour-long video. But let's get into what we're here for. Let's get into the Q&A. Where and when did you study? While I did study here and there before going to Florence, it was really at the Florence Academy of Art where my studies started. It's the first place I went where I felt that I actually was being taught something that was concrete and that was not abstract. You'll often hear art teachers say things like feel the form or be bold and confident or something like that. But none of those things actually mean anything, and so using that information as a student is very hard. At the academy, we were taught things of substance, and they were taught in a way where they could be used on our own work, on our sculptures. I did get a bachelor's degree back in Norway from a nondescript art program at a regular college before going to Florence, so I had sculpted for about 4 years by the time I went to Italy, and I did sculpt a lot in school and a lot at home while still in Norway. And I do think that helped me out quite a bit when I went to the Florence Academy. And when did I study? I studied in Italy from 2014 to 2017. It's a 3-year program and I did the whole thing, which you really need for a well-rounded education in my opinion. I remember reading a book about the training prescribed during the Renaissance, and it was something like 12 years, and they started at age 12 or 13 or something like that. So 3 years is bare minimum, I think. I started sculpting in 2010 while in art college, so I guess ultimately I studied sculpture from 2010 to 2017. I will say though that as an artist, you are never really done studying, and you will keep and should keep learning and growing as you continue to work. Art will often be referred to as a practice instead of say a job, and I think that goes deeper. The wording there goes deeper than just describing something that you do. So you're never really done studying, and that's part of what makes the job so interesting in my opinion. Let's do a technical question: how to keep things symmetrical. Keeping things symmetrical is important and something that most beginners are going to find rather difficult to do. The 3 main bony masses of the human body are the pelvis, the rib cage, and the skull. These 3 bony masses are symmetrical, meaning they are the same on either side if we were to imagine a center line running down the middle of them when observed from the front or the back. Obviously, they are not going to be symmetrical when we observe them from the side views. While in truth, there probably are some deviation from symmetry within these 3 bony masses, especially in the rib cage, which can expand and contract, it's best to think of these 3 bony masses as fairly solid objects that are symmetrical. Doing so will ensure, or at least massively help, in the quest of making your sculpture feel like it is solid and therefore potentially real. Keeping things symmetrical therefore becomes important when working within these 3 bony masses, and it's not an easy thing to do. If I could give one tip in how to achieve symmetry, it would be using a center line. Draw a center line through the center of the bony mass and make sure the center line is straight. A visual guide will go a really long way to helping you keep the bony masses symmetrical on either side. This is not a trick only beginners should be doing, by the way. Everyone should be drawing center lines on their work. It's such an easy and reversible trick, you can get rid of the center line whenever you need to, that not doing so is almost akin to self-sabotage in my opinion. It's much easier to judge symmetry when there's a center line there serving as a visual guide. Another tip or trick, I suppose, is to work on both sides of the figure at the same time. Try not to only work on one side of the body for too long. So when you sculpt the contours of the hip on the right side, for example, immediately move to the other side, the left side, and sculpt the same thing there. Remember that the contours that belong to a bony mass are going to be pretty symmetrical as well. 90 degrees across from each other and perpendicular to the center line running through the bony mass, we will have symmetry in the contour, in most scenarios. While this perhaps seems like a lot of math or a lot of considerations to make, it does become second nature rather fast. Keep these things in mind and sculpting will go smoother and be easier for you. In the beginning, you will need to remind yourself somehow, but after a while, you will be doing these things completely subconsciously. So we have someone asking some hard questions here, or rather, the hard question. This might be from some family members of mine, I don't know. Can you make a living as an artist? The answer is, of course, yes. Okay, so let me elaborate a little bit on that, because it's probably necessary. Yes usually isn't enough. Artists have been making a living forever, and so why can't you do it, and why couldn't it be done today? Very many people do it already. They do it already today, so it's not impossible, clearly. I have a colleague who, when asked this question, answered that it's probably the most secure job you can pursue, since there are always jobs for artists who are good, and I believe this to be true. Now let's hope AI doesn't come and get us, but, we'll see. The thing to consider is perhaps how this can be done. Because being good simply isn't enough, being good doesn't guarantee commissions or gallery sales. Perhaps you think that I'm okay at what I do, and I've sold, I think, one thing at a gallery my whole career, and I've never had a proper commission. So being diverse and open to many options for income is going to be key. First and foremost, make sure that you acquire hard skills. Hard skills are things like drawing, anatomy, technical skills, technical things that can be taught by somebody else to you. Hard skills will ensure that you have something to offer others who might want to learn art, and this is such an underrated opportunity for income. Pretty much everyone that I know, 90% of the artists that I know or know of, who I think are incredibly good, also teach. And I don't think they all teach because they find it the most fun thing to do. I'm sure some of them do. But I think also a lot of them teach because it provides financial return on time invested. Essentially, it pays the bills. You can enjoy it as well, of course. I enjoy teaching a lot, but there's no way around the fact that it is a good, reliable way to pay the bills. And you need one of those usually. There are workshops you can teach, and there's online teaching now, which provides something for those who can't afford the time or the cost of a workshop. People's willingness to go to you for teaching depends on how good you are, your skills, which you can display on the internet, in real life, in galleries, etc. And eventually, when you've taught for a while, how the material you teach is being presented. People are going to start to notice that, and then word of mouth might take over. Reaching out so people know who you are is also important, and this is where social media comes into play, of course. While not 100% necessary, I think, developing a following can certainly help drum up interest in your work and therefore in you, and therefore your teaching. Now, I know artists who drive the interest of their work and their teaching purely through social media, and I also know some artists who've been teaching since long before social media was even a thing. So both are certainly possible. Though social media makes the outreach, I think, both a little bit easier and more convenient. You can sort of take control of that outreach. And the more you can control, I think it's going to be better. There are other industries that require artists as well that do provide more secure incomes compared to being a gallery artist, for example. Now, being a gallery artist is not impossible, but it is not easy, let's say. So being diverse can be really useful. The video game industry and the film industry both employ a tremendous amount of artists. And there's also collectible figure industry, comic book industry. There are many ways that lead to Rome, essentially, and I think it's important to keep an open mind when entering into this career field. Being an artist is hard enough as it is, so try to make it as easy for yourself as you can and look for as many ways to make an income as possible. This also secures you from losing one source of income, which sometimes happen, for example, commissions or gallery sales when the economy is bad and people need to spend money on food and living quarters. Then having something else to rely on for a little bit can be really useful. So a diverse range of income is always going to be beneficial for you. So is it possible to make a living as an artist? Yes, it is possible.